Okay. So I purchased Sonic Superstars about a month or two ago, and like a lot of people, I had plenty of trouble beating the last story and the final boss of the game, the Black Dragon. So, like a lot of people, I went online to look for walkthroughs, guides, and tips on how to beat it without dying, and finally getting through all the phases, the hits, and all the other tricks and tips, finding ways to get through it. And there were plenty of videos online, but from what I gleaned and the videos I downloaded, most of them either had no commentary or did not go into a satisfactory level of detail to describe what you needed to do, what you needed to watch out for, and what ways you could efficiently maximize your time and chances of winning. And on top of that, at least one content creator, I'm not going to name any names, who's been racking up a couple of thousand views, put walkthrough in their title, and I go to click on the video only to find out that they're going through the first time themselves. Shithead! It's not a walkthrough if you don't know what you're doing either. Call it a let's play or a live stream. Don't be a fucking fraud on top of everything else. Anyway, with some extensive testing, a lot of trials, and a whole bunch of errors and dying over and over again, I have found as much information as I could about this boss, and I will be passing this information on to you in a detailed, fully fleshed out, move by move, phase by phase, full commentary run of this Black Dragon boss. But I'm not going to lie, I am pissed. So I've got some venting to do. I know you don't want to hear me, so I've got some timestamps in the description below. If you want to skip right to the boss, I don't blame you, go on right ahead. But this video is going to be consisting of three main parts. The first is going to be my thoughts on the Black Dragon and why I consider this a poor boss fight and a really half-ass attempt at a supersonic counter. The second section will be the walkthrough itself. Again, phase by phase, step by step, attack by attack. We'll go through the whole thing and every single bit in and out. And I'll show you exactly what you need to do and everything you can possibly know about this boss. There might be some things I'll miss, but I guarantee you, if you watch this video, you will have a lot more knowledge behind you and a lot better chance of beating it with a lot less frustration behind you. With the information I've got, I've now been able to hop on and beat the boss in one or two tries. So I'm sure I can do the same for you. And finally, the third part itself will be just a simple playthrough of the boss without any commentary. So it'll be basically a combination of both types of walkthroughs. One with commentary, one without. So, with all that out of the way, let's get right to it. And you've had plenty of time to skip to the walkthrough part of this video by now. So, if you haven't, thank you so much for listening to me vent. Let's get to it. The Black Dragon boss fight is poorly designed. Simple as that. End of conversation. It's just bad. It would be different if it were simply challenging. But it's just broken. It's outright broken. While the beginning remains relatively simple, as it progresses, instructions and damage phases and attack phases become unclear. And it just becomes more difficult to understand what to do, especially when you get to the final phase and you're stuck trying to figure out what to do, especially when you're low on rings. The boss fight in itself, its mechanics,
in terms of difficulty and assistance. The Black Dragon boss fight relies far too heavily upon luck and nowhere near enough on player skill. Now, most people would say, yes, skill issue, get good, you need to get better. And to a point, you could say that's correct. However, there are far too many opportunities that end up wasted because of bad timing or poor programming that is out of the player's hands. Any boss fight, well, most video games in general, but any boss fight, especially a final boss fight, should be a good combination of skill and luck to show what you, the player, have learned throughout the story and the journey of the game, and the challenge of going against an opponent that is much stronger than you in a battle that can, excite and provoke strong emotions. A boss battle should focus on player skill, but leave room for luck as well, because there's always a little more excitement and a little more pulse-pounding thrill when a player manages to beat a boss or a game or any other challenge with a combination of skill and luck. But that combination must be made in balance. This is a good example of luck. This is what luck should feel like in a boss battle. Fighting with increased effort, using the skills and talent that you either already have or have picked up over the game, but just having that little extra bit of luck on your side to make it, either by a slight margin or even by just the skin of your ass. It's something that ultimately brings a great thrill to gamers. It's unanimously a exciting feeling. But when a gamer is doing everything right, when they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, and they still get punished, or the game isn't doing what it's supposed to be doing in order to reward the player or assist the player, or do what it needs to do in order to program or work correctly, it becomes frustrating. When it's all luck and no skill, it's no longer fun. And unfortunately, that's what's happened with Black Dragon here. Through very little, maybe not even any testing, this battle has just been completely drawn down to most luck and little skill. And it's become a frustrating experience for most Sonic fans and nearly any casual gamer. However, I believe that I've come up with a comprehensive guide, and I will show you, move by move, wave by wave, attack by attack, what you can do to go after the Black Dragon and finally take him down. The first thing I'm going to explain is Supersonic's capabilities in this boss fight. Just like with normal Sonic, you can use either the control stick or D-pad to move, but now your only action is the A button. It performs all the actions in this boss fight. In each phase, except the end, it allows Supersonic to dash at the cost of 5 rings. If you're at 10 rings or less, the game won't let you. Once you reach the final phase, then the A button will be used for the final attack at no cost. Obviously, dashing is best to be used as a last resort, so try to limit it to emergencies. The Black Dragon will fire black holes in the first phase, which might catch you in its gravitational pull. This is very likely the only time you'll need to use it. As long as you don't panic, it shouldn't even come up as an issue. Before we even start the fight, let's talk a bit about the mechanics. Some well known, some not so much. Some things to know about this battlefield. It's a 360-degree circle, so you can go in either direction forever. Rings, obstacles, and technically the Black Dragon himself will all spawn randomly because of this. Nearby rings will magnetize slightly towards Supersonic. However, accelerating will significantly widen his gravitational pull, attracting more rings from further away. So, if you're low at the moment, or if you see a bunch of rings on the screen at once, fly left or right as fast as you can to vacuum them up. You'll know you're at top speed when you see the ghost trail of Sonics behind you. First thing you're going to want to do is let the cutscene play, every single time. I know it gets frustrating having to see it every time you die or start over. Trust me, I've been there. But it's surprisingly important and very handy. I'll explain why in a minute. Like, ironically, it might be an actual minute. Black Dragon's first attack, every time, is a large barrage of fireballs shot up from his mouth. Most of them are red, but a few of them will be blue. As you can guess, the blue ones can and should be hit by Supersonic to knock back into it for damage. Now, remember what I said about random spawns? They depend upon where you are when they happen. So, your best bet for an easy hit is to stay relatively still. Now, sometimes a blue beam will spawn and then immediately despawn, but of course, that's more unfortunate issues that has to do with the game. Has the minute passed yet? Okay, awesome. Okay, every 30 seconds, in addition to the random rings floating around, Tails and Knuckles will randomly appear somewhere in the battlefield, dropping a diagonal trail of rings. Tails' tornado will give a loud audible clue via the engine, while Knuckles' gliding noises that they've had available since Sonic Adventure will be completely absent, making him as silent as a genuine fan of Sonic 06. Following them is important. Even more important is actually making contact. If you touch either of them as they fly by, Supersonic will glow and automatically gain 10 rings on top of the ones they're dropping. Very helpful. I can't tell you how many times it saved me from death. Speaking of death, here's an interesting tidbit that I haven't seen in any walkthroughs as of late. When you've died 20 or more times, every minute or so that you've gone by without getting hit, Amy and Trip will also pitch in, riding a fat-ass flicky and dropping 10-pack item boxes. This way, you can actually get to 100 plus rings if you pace yourself and use my tips wisely. Now, this next bit of information is inconclusive as I haven't been able to pin down a consistent verification, but the flicky drop might depend on whether or not you can avoid getting hit for that full minute. Obviously, Supersonic can't take damage, so it can vary on what counts as damage hits and impediment hits. However, I do have footage of both earning flicky boxes despite getting hit and not getting boxes despite not getting hit. Any debunkers, let me know in the comments and I can update the video and description as soon as I can. Back to the fight itself. Once the barrage is finished, another attack he'll use is something I call the shard shower. He'll lift an arm and claw a slew of blue crystal shards across the entire field. It's impossible to clear it all in time, so focus on finding a spot with relatively little ice crystals. After about 5 or 10 seconds, he'll roar and turn them all red. They'll then shatter into pieces which will attempt to home in on you. The third and final attack of this phase is the spin dash. Infringing copyright, he'll curl up into a ball and attempt to steamroll you from different sides of the map. You'll be able to tell which edge of the screen he's coming from when you see the purple sparkling glow beforehand. Additionally, after he passes, he'll be seen in the background heading to his next attack position. He'll do this attack between 2 to 5 times, making it the longest attack in the first phase by far, and the most likely and therefore most ideal time that your friends will appear to back you up. Make sure to keep an eye out for them while dodging the giant black dragon spin ball. After the black dragon does 2 or sometimes all 3 of these attacks, he'll roar in your face and the game will temporarily pause as the game switches perspectives, deletes every single ring, backup friend, and 10-pack on the screen, thanks Sega, and sends Supersonic reeling back. This is when he sends the aforementioned black holes. They come out in random places, so your best bet is to just be careful, but obviously they all originate from his mouth, so don't try to hit him there. Aim for his chest. The belly unfortunately does not count, as it will just bounce you backwards. If and when you manage to hit him, stand nearby, as some rings usually spawn around his floating body, which can help stall the clock until the area resets to normal. Once you've hit him enough times, the next phase will start. Upon enough hits, the shoreline will turn blue, tornadoes will appear everywhere, and Black Dragon will gain a purple glow. Once this second phase starts, now you skip the cutscene. Skip this one every time. Why? Because get this, peak game design, guys. The buddy timer is still running in the background. I can, and have, lost valuable assistance because of these handful of seconds of boss transformation. Yeah, you can actually see the characters in the cutscene. So, when this phase starts, make sure to hold A to skip the mini cutscene so you don't get screwed out of help, because sadly, you're going to be getting less of it from this point forward. This is also why I said not to skip the cutscene in the first phase when you start the boss fight. From there, the timer starts and you'll have a little less time to wait in the first phase to get the assistance you need, which can only be to your benefit. In the second phase, it'll only screw you over. So, back to Black Dragon's new attack phase. To reiterate, at this point, you really have no genuine reason to use dash anymore. His primary attack will be Phantom Hands. His claws will glow and form purple clouds, and soon after, large versions of his hands will swipe across the front of the screen at you wherever Supersonic is, in an attempt to bat you around. You can dodge those attacks, but even better, you can hit him back. Just after those claws swipe across, for an extremely brief time, they will stop where they are, and Supersonic can fly into them to damage him. Only problem is, the time between his attack hitting you, your attack hitting him, and the claw disappearing entirely is very, very short. Like, less than a second in total. However, I know of a highly efficient way to combat this, and it's got a very high chance of success. Simply fly left or right in exactly a straight line. You don't have to do it in this specific way, but I personally suggest you use the D-pad for it, as it's a lot more precise. Once you see the claw forming behind you, simply let go and it'll fly right into you, entering the damage phase right as it touches Supersonic's body, essentially making Black Dragon hit himself. Now, unfortunately, it's kind of difficult to gauge when exactly the claw and the braking will sync up perfectly. so I can't really tell you verbally when the best time to do it will be. However, going horizontal in a straight line makes hitting his hand insanely easier. So really, figuring out the timing yourself isn't that bad. You should be able to get the hang of it quickly. He'll either do this with one or both claws or hands. Obviously, your easiest shot is with the first hand, but if you miss, there's a slightly smaller chance to hit the second one. If not, there's nothing to worry about. Just stay calm, as there's literally only 2 attacks in this second phase, and I've just explained the first one. The second one is a radial wave. Black Dragon will fly to one side of the map and fire out a strange teal, cyan, aquamarine wave of plasma with a hole in the center. You can either fly to the center hole each time, or if you're paying attention to which side Black Dragon is on, you can fly to the opposite side to dodge the wave entirely. This attack is almost completely trivial and really can only pose a possible threat to accessing Trip and Amy if you've hit 20 deaths. Even if you do get hit by the wave, it doesn't stun you long enough to impede you from interacting with Tails or Knuckles if they show up. When Black Dragon roars again and switches perspectives, instead of black holes, he will now shoot very large fireballs at you, which will knock you backwards a considerable distance if you're hit. This is where things get tricky, I'm afraid. Black Dragon disappears from view a lot faster in this phase than the first, meaning if you get hit by 2 fireballs, even if they're not consecutive, then you don't even bother trying. This damage phase is a wash. Yep, his window to attack closes that much faster. However, there is a brighter side to this. Unlike the black holes, the fireballs are entirely predictable and even manipulable. The very first one that comes out when the perspective switches is always in the middle, so you'll have to go up or down immediately to avoid it. Sometimes even then you'll still get hit. It's okay, don't panic, you just have to make sure not to get hit again if that's the case. Each fireball will be shot at the position Supersonic is in when the previous one passes. So, if you went up to dodge the first one, the second one will be near the top. One good thing about this predictability and malleability is that since the fireballs can only come from Black Dragon's mouth, you can use your speed to your advantage. What I personally do is fly upward immediately, then after waiting about half a second or so, I fly straight down and stay there for a little longer than that. Black Dragon will have to fly downward in order to shoot fireballs at the bottom of the screen, giving me a good amount of time to close the distance, float up to the middle at the last minute, and hit him before he can line up his own shot at me. Once you've hit him enough, the gloves, quite literally, come off. He'll no longer do the phantom hands move and only spam the radial waves. This is where shit gets real. They're a lot faster, he fires a lot more of them, and unfortunately the second he's done, he then does the perspective roar. Which means now the waves and attacks can interfere with collecting rings. And more importantly, your buddies have a lot less time and a lot fewer opportunities to pop up and help. One slight positive is that during the fireball sections, a few rings do show up in that section finally, but they're of very little assistance and are mostly trivial if you're really low. Black Dragon is also faster at moving, so his fireballs will come out at a higher frequency. However, the previous strategy still applies, you just have to weave a little bit more often now. Regardless, this pattern will loop over and over until you get to the last hit and Black Dragon's final attack phase. Okay, you've gotten to the final hit and you have no clue what the hell is going on or what to do because the game didn't tell you jack shit. Isn't that fun? Well, this is what you're here for, hopefully. Once you get to Black Dragon's final phase, the rest of the coastline will be much darker, and more noticeably, Supersonic will turn towards the back of the screen where Black Dragon is. Sad thing is, this is like the easiest part of the whole fight, but because there's no context or clues or objectives or any kind of hints whatsoever, it's probably the part that got people killed on the most. So, at this point, Rings will no longer appear randomly on the screen. The only help you will get is from your friends. So you better pick a god and pray that they show up when you need them. Also, remember when I said I'd tell you when you can use dash again? This is it. Again, the game doesn't tell you this unless you completely divert attention from the boss itself, but the dash move will no longer apply here and you will no longer be charged rings for it. Thank God. You'll be using the A button for Black Dragon's last attack. Black Dragon will fire 6 comets at you, one at a time, in rhythmic succession. Each time, 2 reticles will show up and converge. Your job will be to hit A once they overlap in order for Supersonic to parry those comets. You have to parry each comet perfectly, as if you screw up, Black Dragon will roar and start all over again. It seems to be very helpful. My advice is to hit the A button just slightly before they overlap, as that seems to give you a little more leeway. After all 6 are parried successfully, Black Dragon will fire a thin yellow beam around the screen for about 8 seconds, which you are to avoid. It is very easy to do so. Even on my first time beating this, not knowing what to do at all, I was able to dodge it no problem. In fact, I genuinely don't even know what happens if you allow it to hit you, despite all my research. That's how easy it is. Once he finishes, one final target appears on his chest, which you must time properly like the other comets. If you do so, a chime that's loud enough to break the sound barrier will play, calmly letting you know that you succeeded in beating the boss. A cutscene will play with Supersonic in his permanently stuck surprise mouth. I mean, Jesus guys, who tested this? And the boss will just turn into Wile E. Coyote. I mean, fuck. So, now that the walkthrough portion is finished, and everything has been explained in great detail, now it's time to put those tips into practice. Here is a full playthrough of the boss from beginning to end, showing what I have learned and displayed in the tutorial from start to end. I'm also going to be switching out that insipid final boss theme with Egg Reverie Zone. Lopes did it better! Lastly, please forgive the poor quality of my capture card. My computer's been having issues recently, and I have yet to find someone who's been able to fix it for less than the price of a used car. So bear with me, it shouldn't be too much of a hindrance, hopefully. My apologies once again. Here we go! And there you go. Black Dragon is defeated. Trip sealed him away in an orb that, I don't know, where's Knuckles? Anyway, you're left with a conclusion that's leaving you feeling hollow and regretting this purchase more than likely. Anyway, wasn't that a lot more exciting than whatever synthetic keyboard junk that guy gave us? Yeah, like I said, Lopes did it better. That's the video. I hope you guys enjoyed this walkthrough. This real walkthrough, by the way. Not some bullshit clickbait nonsense. I hope this taught you guys a little bit, and I hope it enlightened you out there. See you next time.